Hi, welcome to my tutorial. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to draw graphs of different kinds of mathematical equations like linear equations and quadratic equations using a very popular spreadsheet software called Microsoft Excel that comes with an Office 365 subscription, or it all comes with the standalone license of Microsoft Office. So let's check it out. First, we'll have to open this green colored icon app called Excel. Now this is the first page that appears. We're going to select a new blank workbook here. Now each of the Excel files are called workbooks. This is called book 1, and this interface that we are going to see here, this combination of rows and columns, this is called a spreadsheet. Now a workbook may contain different spreadsheets in a single file, like this is called sheet 1. We can also create another sheet here, which is sheet 2, and we can switch between different sheets here. But for this purpose, we'll select sheet 1 and sheet 2 only. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to draw graphs of these two questions. Like in question number 1, we are asked to sketch the graph of a linear equation y is equal to 2x plus 3, and we have to state the x and y intercepts. And in the second question, we have to draw a graph of a quadratic equation. So we're going to check one by one, both of them, how to draw them. Now first of all, these rectangles, which you may also know before, these are called cells of a spreadsheet. Now these cells can be used to enter different kinds of data like text, like numbers, or even mathematical formula. Now we have different kind of mathematical functions which are built in to this program, and they can be used in a variety of different ways, and we have a lot of functions built into Microsoft Excel. But for drawing different kinds of graphs, we normally don't need many of the functions. We normally use the simple operators like plus, minus, multiplication, division. So first of all, as we know that if we need to draw a graph of a linear equation, we first need to draw a table of values. Like we draw a simple graph on a graph paper, we first need a combination of x and y values. So first we need to draw the table. Now I'm going to just label these two cells as x and y, and I'm going to select the values of x starting from minus 3 till plus 3. So I'm going to insert the values of the independent variable x myself, and then for the values of y, as we draw a simple graph, we know that we need to insert these values of x into the equation y is equal to 2x plus 3 so that we can get the y coordinate corresponding to this x coordinate. Now how do we do that in Microsoft Excel? For that we need to enter a formula into this cell, which is this cell C3, which is the corresponding cell of the value of x, which is minus 3 here. Now how to tell Microsoft Excel that we are inserting a simple text, a number, or a formula? Well, the simplest way of doing it is just put an equal to sign at the start. This equal to sign tells Microsoft Excel that we are now entering a formula rather than a simple value of or a simple text. So now what we need to do is we need to enter the equation y is equal to 2x plus 3 in such a way that this cell automatically picks up this value as x and then multiply it with 2 and then add plus 3, just like we have here, that the x which is minus 3 should be substituted here and then multiplied by 2 and then 3 should be added to it. So this is how this should do. Now the simpler way of doing is that 2 is a static value. 2 is a fixed value in the equation. It doesn't change. So we write 2 as it is. And now what we want is that this 2 should be multiplied with the value of x minus 3. So for multiplication, we use the steric sign here in Microsoft Excel. And what we'll do is we'll simply refer to the cell that contains the value, the concerned value of x, which should be put into the equation in this particular cell. So 2 times B3 means that it will multiply 2 with the value which is written inside this cell, B3, which is minus 3. And then we're going to add 3 into it to make it y is equal to 2x plus 3. Now once this is done, once we have entered the formula correctly, what we'll do is we'll simply need to press enter here. And we can see that the Microsoft Excel has automatically calculated the value as minus 3. And even if we check it by simple calculations, that 2 times minus 3 is minus 6, and minus 6 plus 3 is minus 3. So we have calculated the accurate value of y. Now what we need to do is we need to insert this function in every cell of this column y. Now one way of doing this is just to enter these formulas again and again manually. But in Microsoft Excel we don't need to do it. We can just simply drag this cell, the formula which is written in this cell, and it will automatically copy this formula into the following cells, and it will also select the relevant corresponding values for that particular cell. Now how is it done? We can see that we have a small green colored box at the bottom right hand corner of the cell. What we need to do is we need to take our mouse to this, and this plus sign will change, white plus sign will change to a narrow black sign here. This indicates that now we're at the right point. What we need to do is we need to just left click and then drag this mouse downwards, and here we can see that this program has automatically calculated all the values of y, and we can also see that if we need to calculate this value of y, it should pick up the value 1 for this particular value of y, not minus 3. And we can see that it has automatically picked up the correct value of x as we have dragged it down. Although we have written the formula corresponding to this cell, but when we dragged it down, it automatically detected that when we have calculated the first value of y, it picked that value of x, which was the cell immediately left to the value of the y cell. So when we drag it down, it automatically detects the cell which is to the left side of that particular y cell. So this is a very intelligent way of Microsoft Excel of calculating the values of y. So in this way we have easily calculated all the table values. Now what we need to do is, the next step is to draw the graph of the equation y is equal to x plus 3. Now we can format these cells if we want to by just selecting these and placing different kinds of borders if we like, and different formattings. We can just align these values to the center, we can bold these values, and many things can be done to just make it more presentable. But here we are just going to use these values for that purpose. We can also insert borders here, like for example, if you select all borders, now this table looks a bit presentable than before. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the real part here. We're going to insert the chart which is corresponding to the type of the graph which we need. Now when we check the different kinds of options here, different charts are available, like pie charts, line graphs, histograms, and many others. But what we need to do is we need to draw a simple coordinate graph of x and y values. For this option should be used, which is called the scatter chart. Now in the scatter chart there are different options here. We can select this type of chart which automatically joins all these points with a line, or we can just select this one. This is the best one, because whenever we draw a real graph we first plot the points on the grid and then we join those points according to the type of chart. So I'm going to select this chart. Now we can see that at the moment this chart is empty. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to right click and go to the select data option, and chart data range, what we will leave is empty. Here we need to add the series of values which we need. So we can just name the series as the equation of the line, 2x plus 3. Now for series x values, what we can do is we just need to click on this field and we can just select all the cells that contain the x values. It will automatically pick up those cells once we drag the mouse with the left click. And similarly for y values, we need to remove this value written, and then we can select all those cells which contain the corresponding y values. So once this is done, we can see that the series has been successfully added and the graph is also drawn, but just the points, because we've selected that graph which only plots the point, because we're going to join these points later on based on the type of the equation which we are using. Now here we can see that we have different kinds of chart design options available in the quick layout section. For example, we can just select this option which contains both the major as well as the minor grid lines. We don't need this box here, we can simply delete it. Now we can just resize this box according to the requirements, just as we like. Now here we have axis titles. We can simply name it as the x-axis, and similarly we can name this as the y-axis. Okay, once this is done, we can see that the x-axis has values ranging from -4 till +4, and the value of the y-axis are ranging from -4 till +10. We can modify these values according to our requirements, but first let's select all these points and join these points with a straight line. What we need to do is, once we click any of these points and all points are selected, we'll just right click and we go into this option, add trend line. Once we click this, a new window opens from the right side, format trend line, and in which the different options are available. We can select either the linear trend line, logarithmic, polynomial, but we know that this graph is particularly for a linear function, y is equal to 2x plus 3. So we should select the linear one here because we already know it. So after that, we can see that the line has been joined between the points, but the line is starting and ending right at the boundaries of these points. We should draw a line which is extending the endpoints. We can do it very easily by these forward and backward forecast options. For example, if I forward this line by 1 unit, this line is up till x coordinate 3. So when I forward this on one period and press enter, we can see that this line is now extended till one extra interval on the x-axis, which is +4. And we can also do it in the reverse directions. Like we can also forecast it backwards 1 unit. And here we can see that now this line is starting 1 unit backward as well. So this is the proper way of pointing the line. The line should not be such that it is starting and ending on the exact points which we have plotted, because these points are just some of the points on the line. The line is a continuous one. So we need to show that this line is continuous by extending the line on both ends. So once we have done that, now we can format this trend line, because here we can see that this line is plotted in a dotted format, We don't want a dotted line, we want a continuous line here. And we can also change the thickness of the line as well as the color of this line. So we'll click on the line again. Now we're going to select this button here, which is the format button. Here the color of the line, we can change it to black. The line will be changed. And the dash type here, we can select this continuous line here. Now this line is not dotted anymore, but we can see that this line is a little bit thick line. We know that when we are drawing a graph, mathematical graph, the line should not be a thick line. To make it more accurate, this line should be a bit thin line. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this width option. It is 1.5 point right now. We can reduce it into 1 or 0.75 is one of the most ideal options for this. Now we can see that this line is now a thin line, which is the desired line format in mathematics. And the axes are now properly drawn. We can change the scale of the axis here by selecting one of the axes at a time. We have selected this axis at the moment. Now in the axis options, we can select this bar button here, and we'll open this drop down options, the axis options. Here the bounds, the minimum and maximum bounds of the axis are written. You can see that. So these bounds can also be changed. Right now the minimum bound, which means the minimum value from which the x-axis is starting, is -5, and the maximum bound is +5. We can change these bounds as well if we want to. We can, for example, start this line from -8, and we can end this line on -8 as well. Here we can see that now this graph is starting from the x value of -8 and ending till +8, but the line is still from -4 till +4 because we have not changed the forecasting options of the trend line. So these options are different in their own aspects. It doesn't mean that if we changed the values of the axis, then the line will also extend automatically. So we need to change the trend line options for that case. But I'm just showing you how to change the bounds of the axis. We can also change the scale of the axis if you want to. For example, right now the major interval is 2 here, but if we switch it back towards the old options like -5 and +5, here we can see that the major interval is 1, 2, 3, that has a difference of 1 between each two corresponding values. And the minor options here indicate the interval which is between the two minor grid lines. So if we can see that here from 0 to 1, we have 5 minor grid lines. That means each minor grid line has an interval of 0.2 because 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and then 1.0. This means that this interval is 0.2. But if we change this interval to 0.1, for example, then it will automatically draw 10 boxes here. We can see that because if we want a minor grid line to have a 0.1 interval, then for 0.1 minor interval in 1 unit major interval, there should be exactly 10 divisions. So we have 10 divisions now, each of 0.1. So this is how we can change the minor units, and we can also change the major and minor units from the y-axis here. But in the y-axis, we have each major interval of 2 to cover all the values which we are using in our graph here. So if I change this minor interval into 0.2, for example, now the major y interval is also divided into 10 parts because a minor interval of 0.2 in a major interval of 2 means exactly 10 divisions. So now we have 10 minor grid lines between each major interval on both of the x and y axis. So we can play with these values to draw a graph which any kind of graph which we desire. So if we want to switch it back towards the 5 minor grid lines, we can do it again. So this is how we can change it. Now we can also convert this into the bold formats, like the labels. If we want to, we can convert it into bold formats. We can also change the font type if we want to. We can change it to Arial format. These are different formatting options, just like we do in a simple text or in a Microsoft Word document. So we can shift these font styles as per our requirements. So now what we're going to do next is that once this is drawn, we can do any kind of further. We can draw arrows on the axis if we like to, just like in a real graph we have. So begin arrow type and ending arrow type, if we select this one, it will place the arrows on the beginning side, and on the ending side we can also place arrows. So we have arrows on both ends of the y-axis, and similarly we can do this with the x-axis. So here we have 2 arrows again on both sides, and we can also thicken this line, like we can increase the width of the axis so that they're visible, prominent on the graph, on the grid. So now we can also change the color or to the black color if you want to. So that makes it more visible. Now these cross marks are going on one side of the line. We can also change these markers from tick marks option here. So major tick mark outside, we can select cross option here. So these tick marks now are going into both ends, and same goes with the y-axis. We don't need to draw minor tick marks, because it will make it more complex. So this is how we can change or modify the formatting of the graph, just like we require. So this graph is now in a much better shape, as you can see that by simple formatting we can convert this graph into a more presentable version. So this is the simplest way of plotting a graph on a linear graph on Microsoft Excel. There are many other options which we can use to convert this graph into a kind of a form which we like, but these are the basic things which we should use, basic settings which we should use. Now one thing we can also include on this graph is the label of the line. For this we can check this box, display equation on chart here. Now we can see that the equation is also displayed, and we can also check that the graph has automatically, the trend line basically has automatically picked up the correct equation, just like we have inserted into our table. We have not written 2x plus 3 here, as we can see that, but when we've drawn the trend line between these between all these table points, and we have checked this box, this trend line has automatically detected the line which is joining these 2 points, and the equation is correctly written. Now the one more thing which we needed to state was the x and y intercepts of this line. For the x and y intercepts of the line, we can see that this line is crossing the y-axis at exactly 3. So this means that also it is written in the equation according to the form y is equal to mx plus c, the constant term which is added into the mx term, this is plus 3. So we can check the y-intercept either from the equation directly, or we can simply read from the graph with the point is where the line is crossing the y-axis. And for the x-intercept, we can see that this line is cutting the x-axis at exactly minus 1.5. So the x-intercept of this line is minus 1.5 and the y-intercept of this line is plus 3. So this is how we can easily draw the graph of a linear equation using Microsoft Excel. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to draw the graph of a quadratic equation and what are the important things to show on the sketch of the graph of this kind of equation. Such as, for example, in this question, you can see that you need to find the line of symmetry and other things. So we'll go into more detail in the next video. So for now, I hope you like this tutorial. Please subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos. Thank you very much and have a nice day.